Do you have any sounds to make?
No,
Okay.
I think I'm good.
All right, we're okay here.
Well, you do this at such awkward times. Okay. Anyways, so listen. Women are doing it to themselves now. They are like the persecution, the attacks. And I'm not talking about every woman. Okay, I'm talking about
pretty much everyone.
Yeah, there's this whole liberal sentiment of change that's coming. Not realizing that this is exactly what we've been asking for a long time. Find out all this and more on Self-Evident Podcast. Welcome to Self-Evident Podcast. You have Massey, you have Mike.
Yo.
And it's a glorious day, guys. We should thank the Lord for our day because he says, this is the day the Lord's made. I will rejoice and be glad in it.
Amen.
And we should enter his gates with thanksgiving because it's Thanksgiving week and we got a lot to be thankful for and so much more to live for. We're living in great times. I know there are tough times, some dangerous times, but I think this is the time where we're going to see the Lord really move. And we've been preaching this for years and we'll continue to preach it, but we're not done yet. There's a lot going on, and it's not about politics. It's about the Lord and what he wants to do. So we're seeing a massive revival happen throughout the land as far as people actually talking about Jesus, and they're not ashamed to do it. Now, I will say we need to teach about testimonies, like just to give a testimony, but it's good because now we get to disciple, and it's not uncommon to talk about. And so, guys, if you have not gone to theselfevidenttruth.com, what the flip are you waiting for? What, you want an invitation? You want a link as a Christmas gift? We can do that.
Just remember, beatings will continue until morale improves. So why have you not bought something yet?
Yeah, no doubt. So Mike's not even wearing one of our merch shirts. That's all right, though. I'm not mad about it.
Do you hear this flack? This flack. I'm wearing the shirt from our church, our church's men's conference.
That is
but
true.
This is
that
the
is true.
flack I get.
That is true. That
See,
is true.
I'm not even exempt from it. So go buy a shirt and get yourself off the naughty list.
Buy him one.
Yeah, buy me one. I take gifts.
Besides, they just had a baby, and we've raved about this. That little baby's adorable.
He loves shirts and he wears an XL.
Yeah,
So-
and he loves watches, specifically
Yeah.
Cartier.
Thank you.
I'm just
Thank you. Watching
saying.
out for my son.
Yeah, first feature. Anywho's, so go to the Self-Evident Truth, and if you haven't become a sponsor yet, you must. There's a lot going on. If you've not received our newsletter yet, please sign up on the website to do so. You can put your email down. We'll send it to you. It'll show you the vision of what we have going on next year. There's a lot. There's at least 2 months right now that we're pretty much gone, like 3.5 weeks a month. That's insane. So I'm glad for it. I'm excited for it. I know I'm going to be super tired, and I'm going to tell my wife in the middle of it all, going, well, who scheduled this? Why did we do this? But I know we do it because it happens a lot.
It's so funny because I could just hear you like, because you and I
What
both do
idiot.
it. We both do it. We're
We're like,
oh yeah, no problem.
let's
we'll drive
go.
12 hours and then we'll do this thing and we'll stay up all night. And we'll drive 12 more hours and then we'll fly over here and we'll do this thing and then we'll head straight back for
and then
church
we'll have
on Sunday morning.
Then we'll have tuba cookie dough.
Yeah. And then we're doing it. We're like, who is so stupid
who would
to
do
think
this?
through this?
This is dumb. But I love it because we're going to reach so many people, and I'm excited for that. So please pray for protection around us as we go do that next year. But
In Sandy.
yeah, last podcast was dope. Make America States Again. We're going to have Dr. Joe back on. I thought he just did so good.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, super good guy. But there is one issue we did not talk about that I think we should with him, and it's the Convention of States. And I think that's huge because it's a movement. It's a popular movement. And we need to dispel some of the myths around it. I'm not personally for it because Constitution. I don't think you're for it.
No, I'm not supportive.
So there's a lot to talk about with this, and I know this may sound contradictory to liberty, but we'll tell you why in the next podcast that we have with him. So stay tuned for that one because he's just a ball of knowledge, that guy. So
Yeah,
it was
he is.
exciting. Now, Mike and I were talking, or actually I texted him a picture, and it
Let
really
me
got us thinking. Now,
Throw that up. here.
Mike's been talking about this since before the election. But when this 4B movement thing started happening, we didn't really address it because it's like, everyone else will.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I saw this time, I don't even know if it's real. It looks real. So I'm sure it's real.
Yeah.
This, did you have it up?
Yeah, I put it up.
Okay, that magazine cover kind of startled me a little bit. Not in a negative way. It was like it startled me in a spiritual way, almost in a. It's time for you to get up and start preaching this message that you've been preaching for a couple of years. When I preach out of Jeremiah 29, verse 4, it says, when basically just before that, he says, when you're in the midst of judgment and persecution and you get exiled, he tells them, go build houses and live in them. And then he says, multiply with children. Now, there's a promise in that. Even no matter how bad it gets, multiply your seed, multiply your children, multiply, right? And that you can take that spiritually too, like in these times, new covenant, multiply the gospel, right? Go out and do that. But I do firmly believe that societies are built on people, right? So we should, as moral agents, as godly agents, as Christians, multiply. So can you put that back up?
Yeah.
When I saw this magazine face here, the child-free life, and this beautiful, like, look at this beaches and all these other things, it startled me actually because you are, let's say, and I'm not indicting Christians here to say that you're not Christian, but I want you to think this with me through. Unless God has told you don't get married, which is possible, unless he says don't have children, which is possible, I'm not saying that. But you can't look at that with a Christian conscience, knowing your father wants you to get more children. You can't look at that with a clean conscience and say, oh, that's healthy.
Right.
Right? As a heart of a man, heart of a woman, a woman's instinct is motherly. That's why when they find weak men, they become their mother in a lot of ways. I know you talk about this in Forged.
Absolutely right.
But then the men find this alpha, I want someone to disciple. That's why they want their posse around their homies, because they want a brotherhood. They want someone to codify or to accept and elevate the relationship, in other words. Well, when you have a child, it's something to pour into. It's something to live for. It's something to shoot for. And when I looked at that picture and I'm seeing these two people by the beach, and they're basically this is like a for time a spike of the football about this issue. It really just startled me, and I texted to you, and I'm like, we need to talk about this.
Yeah, so here's what's going on. So, as Massey alluded to, it's this
Just
time...
caught me drinking my coffee because you didn't switch
I totally
was just
forgot.
swigging.
In case you didn't know,
Yeah,
we're
we're
having Unkin Onas.
I was gonna say we're sponsored by who, Mike? Put it up.
Unkin.
Unkin. Just put your finger on the D there.
Yeah. Those are nice cups.
These are nice
That's kind of
cups.
cool. I like
Kind of feel
those.
Christmassy.
Yeah, it's not even Thanksgiving. yet.
beginning to look a lot
like
Thanksgiving.
Anyways, so what we're talking about there, for audio listeners, Massey alluded to it, there was a Time article where the cover was this young, beautiful couple laying on a, looks like tropical beach.
Sorry,
And
audio
it's-
listeners, I did not describe
And
it.
it's talking about child-free couples.
Yes.
This child-free movement.
And they look happy, at peace.
free, you know, do what I want, jet set, and all that. And this movement seems to have started actually in the early 1900s. And then, of course, during the 70s, the feminists really took hold of it and moved forward with it. And Massey texted it to me, and we got to talking about it just because, like, it's so indicative of the times.
It sure is, dude.
And we're not even throwing shade at the people who decide they're doing it. In one way, it's like, okay, let's look at the depths behind this, especially spiritually. But in the other hand, it's like, if you don't want to, I don't want you to.
Right.
You know, now it's your choice. But I would rather have somebody who chooses not to have kids because they really don't want kids than somebody to have kids and realize they really don't want kids.
Right.
Now, here's where you tapped into that I want to start in this point, and we'll go a myriad of different directions.
Yep,
but I think that selfishness, and this is the attack that gets lobbed at them, and I was reading some articles about it, and of course that's like the number one, like, people always have their comments to us, and of course they call us selfish, and they say we're going to regret it, and we're going to grow up alone, and it's like, well,
Yeah,
you know.
because in their pursuit of saying, I don't want kids because it's selfish of me to have them, I won't pay attention to them, you're actually being selfish and not denying yourself to pour into other children.
Precisely.
It's really odd. It's a weird culture there.
And when in the articles I was reading, the people they were interviewing or the people writing the articles very much were like, I already have a career that I'm focusing on, and
crazy.
my marriage that I'm focusing
Which is
on,
cool.
and my dog that I'm focusing on. I don't have time to focus on kids. I want to focus on me. I want to do what I want to do. And I'm not trying to exaggerate or generalize, straw man the argument. Like, flat out, this is what they're saying are their priorities. And I think when you have kids, and I tell this story to guys who are about to have kids or just started having kids.
Yep.
When I got married, there was a piece of me that died, right? It was like, this isn't about me. It's about her and me.
And dude, it was a willful choice of death.
Exactly.
It's like, I'm dying to me now.
I'm not my only one. There's somebody I'm taking care of. When my first son was born, a whole nother level of me that I didn't realize was there died off. As I'm looking at him,
and it tried to stay alive.
Right.
You're trying to maintain both lives, and you can't.
Exactly. Like and I think a lot of dads go through that period of like,
yep.
I'm struggling with killing off this piece of me that's selfish. And you have to go into that with open eyes with kids that your life changed. Like, and that's why when I counsel like young couples that are about to get married or just got married, it's like, I'm not telling you to absolutely go out of your way to not have kids, but maybe wait a couple of years if you can, enjoy each other, get to know each other, do those weekends where you just get away, that kind of thing. So that way, when you have kids, you're not lamenting and regretting and trying to hold on to that old season. Live that season of being newlyweds and enjoy your time.
Totally.
Then when you have the kids, that season's dead.
I think that's a very wise point, especially to those who maybe might be married or getting married or young couples or whatever. I think the important point is you've been through engagement, you've been through all these things, you had a wedding, all these other things, and then when you live with each other, if you've done it the way, to not live with them first and then get married and then you live with them, you start to figure each other out. You start to see like, oh man, my husband's a slob, or my wife she consumes the bathroom.
Right.
And when you figure that stuff out, you learn to work routines. You learn how to work with each other. You learn communication. You learn now you're together all the time, and it's instant. And then you can build a vision together of where are we going to be in 5 years? Right. Do we want a house? And when you do that, when you build that with each other, it's easy to do with your children. My mistake, and this is a huge mistake I made, and I wasn't taught, so I'm not blaming necessarily myself here. Carrie and I never really built a vision plan when we were together at first. We just did because we were working all the time and all that other stuff. Now trying to build a vision plan, I look at all the roadblocks that could come instead of saying, no, I'm going to trust in what God's putting in our hearts. So we do have a vision, and in my mind, I'm fighting off this is going to happen, this kind of thing's going to break, you know what I mean? Like your mind starts to, because you didn't deal with it early on, you didn't build a structure, you didn't build with each other, and all that is just from us to you. Learn that as best you can, and then get into having children, and because they're going to learn from so many mistakes that you just made, you know what I mean?
And to add on to that, you have a much greater ability to make those mistakes early on, because you get these guys who are 40, 45 years old and they've got kids, they've got a wife, and now all of a sudden they won't take any risk because they have so many people who are relying on them, 100%. So many responsibilities. And so you don't learn how to you may not learn how to take reasonable risk, or you may lose that skill, so to speak, if you don't actively train it when you're first married.
Yeah, can I bring up one more point? I think because this is really good before we get into child having or child rearing, child bearing. It's you need to learn each other in your roles too, because what happens is men can lose themselves in pursuit of trying to please his wife, and in many ways you lose yourself in leading. And if you don't have that down, men, and women have their vision and don't lose themselves down. And it changes over time. It changes with kids. But you need that first, because, man, if you lose yourself with your wife, or wife loses herself with her husband and it's not communicated, imagine throwing a kid in the mix. Now all the focus is on that child. Yeah. And so you lose yourself, and you lose it. That's why a lot of these families divorce when their kids are empty when they become empty nesters, because it's like, well, what do I do now? Who am I? It's like, because your whole life was consumed in your kids, not in who God made you, your identity. Men, your identity. That word is so cheesy sometimes to me because it's so overused. But just seeing couples, even ourselves, like my wife and myself, there's things I'm like, what do I like? You know what I mean? Like, because I just never thought, I knew what it was beforehand, But you just over time you lose yourself, and what that does is it ends up being you end up compromising who you are in pursuit of the happiness side, and actually your compromise will hurt you in a lot of ways if you don't know who you are, because it's good to have a little bit of like, no, I don't like that, yeah, that's just not for me. And then you meet in the middle somewhere, and you're like, okay, cool, I have my little fun, she has her little fun, we're meeting in the middle, and you know what, you end up having more fun because both of you decided it together. So you got to remember who you are too before you even have a child, so you know what to put in that child.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And I think that's so important to be very specific or focused on that, very conscious about that. I think what happens a lot of times, and this is a roadblock that child-free couples are avoiding, right? And it's that sense of you get two people who are trying to figure each other out. And then sometimes they're like, well, we're having difficulty figuring each other out. Let's have a kid. That'll fix this, right? Which red lights all over that.
Right.
The kid is going to complicate the relationship, not make it more simple. But then there's that other aspect of you have to be really good partners and a team, and then you'll take care of your kids well. Because you'll see those families, like you said, those families who, as soon as the kids are out of the house, they get divorced. More than likely, they were having troubles.
They sure
but
were.
They put the kids first. And they said, well, the kids are the most important thing. We got to raise the kids. We'll put ourselves aside for the kids. But the problem is the kids still they pull out what's going on. They know, right? And they pull in that issue of mom and dad just did not click. Mom and dad didn't do well. You know, and they stuck around, and I was in the middle of it.
And trust us when we say that, because like I've said that to my dad and mom. You know, like you may not have shown it to other people, but we saw what was behind the scenes. Even when you didn't argue in front of us, we knew.
You can tell when mom and dad
dude. Like, why are they outside talking and not inside like they always do? You know what I mean? You just notice things. You know what I mean? You notice their silence that's deafening. You know, so. It's one thing too to like, and again, you're not gonna be perfect, right? You're gonna have arguments, disagreements. You're gonna have things. You're gonna have moments, times where you just like get upset and frustrated. And if you guys are going through this, I don't know why we're talking about it, but if you are going through this, literally there's hope, because I was that guy getting on my wife about things that I shouldn't have, being as insecure as heck, and I had to get dealt with by God. So if God can fix me and heal my side of things, for my wife to honor and respect me and to love me. So that I can, like, first I had to love her and respect her and honor her first. Like, if he did it with me, I promise you he can do it to you too. Because that was me. Like, I was just taking out all my anger on my wife, my kids. I was that guy. I was a douche, bro. Like, I was a jerk. And I wish I could have said it any different than that, but it's true. Like, I was so insecure that I was blaming everybody else but me. And it's the oldest sin in the book, right? And so if he can do it with me, he can do it with you. I promise you. My wife and I just love each other. I adore my wife. I think she's amazing. And you just so to get back to the thing, a lot of the times, if you look at people who want to be like this, childish, childless, or whatever, it is childish. They don't know how to me, they don't know how to take care of themselves. Therefore, they can't take care of another. You know what I mean?
And I would add to that, that
was a gross oversimplification.
No, and I get where you're going with it, because I think, there are. And you get a lot of, especially women, you know, when I was looking into this, who I didn't know how to take care of kids. I never really had a desire to take care of kids, so I'm going with that. And I get that, and I understand that, because nobody wants to not want kids, have kids, and then trapped into 18 years of intense focus of dealing with kids.
Well, you see women who have abortions. I'm too young. I can't take care of a kid, but so kill the fruit.
Right.
So now the movement is, if we get married, then we don't even have to worry about that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So now it's almost like a badge of honor. It's like we put our flag on the moon.
We're not
if you
doing
believe in that,
yeah.
right? Like, this is it. We're gonna be So the new fad is gonna be we're childless, and you see the most lonely of lonely. Even Hollywood actors have kids because they're alone. They need someone. They need to take care of something. Right. And so I don't know.
I think that's the deeper aspect of humanity is, and I talk about this in context with guys, but I think I know it's true for both. We're built to sacrifice.
Yep.
We're built to give. Mm-hmm. We're built to become selfless.
Yep.
And following after Christ is dying to yourself.
Agreed.
In other words,
Agreed.
if you're dead to yourself, you don't need to give yourself anything.
100%.
Right? Think about that. What do you give to a dead guy? Nothing.
Yeah, he can't
You
receive
don't
it.
need to
He's
give
dead.
him money. You don't need to give him food. He
That's right.
sits there, right? So if you're dead to yourself, you're not focused on providing for yourself. You're not focused on giving yourself. Now, I get it. Gross simplification, but just go with me here.
I'm already with you.
There's a selfless, sacrificial heart, a loving heart towards others that grows the less you are focused on yourself, that style of humility. And I'm not trying to throw shade at these child-free couples because I guarantee they get enough shade and enough accusation, but it's
you can't get mad if they were brought up that way.
right.
You got to talk to them.
And there's to me, there is a growing up or a maturing that happens when you have kids and you realize it's not about yourself. And I think what concerns me about this movement is you have larger and larger numbers of people who are saying, no, I'm going to go the self route. I'm not saying selfish, but the self route instead of the selfless route.
Agreed.
And there are plenty of parents who are still selfish because they haven't figured it out, that how to die to themselves and become selfless towards others. That happens all the time, right? So there is a process that you have to go through, but you have to go through it with open eyes of, I've got kids, it's not about me anymore.
Agreed.
God will take care of me, and God will provide for me, and I will have my good times, and I will have my enjoyments. It's that open hand concept of if you're willing to release the previous season of bachelorhood, bachelorettehood into marriage, keep your hand open, release the season of newlywed, becoming one flesh season into replication, duplication, procreation, whatever word you want to use, right? You are now creating legacy that's going to last generations.
100%.
You got to have an open hand and enjoy the blessings of those times too, and recognize it. I'm going to use an analogy because I'm going down this train.
Sure.
I get people who they lament friendships they've lost. Like, oh, I was friends with so-and-so, and we used to do best friends, and we lost touch, and I really want that back. And when I'm having these conversations with people, I point out to them, I'm like, look, you're going to have maybe 1 to 3 people who are through the long haul with you. They're really that kind of lifelong friend, right? The vast majority of relationships are for a season. So if you imagine you're on a long journey, let's say you're hiking the Appalachian Trail.
Right.
You're hiking, somebody comes in at some point, and man, you're hiking partners, and you're going down this stretch, and you got things in common, and you're having a great time. And then all of a sudden, their path veers off, and your path goes this way.
Right.
Some people try to hold on to that as tight as possible. But if you keep your hand open on seasons, you enjoy what you had, and you look forward to what you will have. Because later down the Appalachian Trail, another person's going to come alongside you, and you're going to enjoy it, and it's going to be good times, and then you'll just naturally split. And we have those moments in life. And each season of life looks different than the last one. But if you try to hold on to your 20s, and all of a sudden you're a 60-year-old at the bar going until 3 a.m. trying to get hammered, you look like a fool.
But I think even that, the 60-year-old at the bar, they just never figured out who they were. So they're still trying to hold on to this past when they were popular, or when they were, they were that it person. Everybody gravitated towards them. Then they become the staple, right? They're a wall ornament. So it's like, well, we just expect Bob to be there, right? We expect Susie to be there, And then they become, man, look at how long they went, and they didn't really do much with their life. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You almost become an afterthought, right? Mm-hmm. And some will be praised as an antique, and some will be praised as junk, or hailed as junk. And I think for this, just that kind of an analogy, this attempt of saying childless living is another attempt at man saying that God's blessings are curses. It's just
That's
another
perfect way to put it.
It's another attempt at man playing God. It's another attempt at saying these little things will hamper my life. And it's like, when did Jesus ever do that to us as his children? When does God ever say, you know what? I'm not going to take him. You know what I mean? That everybody has a shot at repentance. Everyone. We don't know who's going to be saved. That's up to the Holy Spirit. but we know that everyone deserves a shot at the gospel. They may choose to reject God, but he's not rejected them unless they choose to reject God, right? Then it's okay, right? So you look at this and you go, this is just another attempt at man, which they're doing it a lot, right? Transgenderism, the homosexual issue. It's just another attempt at man saying, no, God's design is not right.
And notice that it's always, and I think I had texted this to you, or we were talking on the phone, and I had said that, isn't it funny that the quote unquote progressive side will always lean away from God? So it leans away from traditional marriage, leans away from having kids, leans away from traditional gender roles. It leans away from systems, hierarchies, all of that are reflective of God, and leans into personal desires, vice, pleasure,
so
self-goal.
It's exactly what you wrote. You said, isn't it funny that the left seems to always promote things that go against God? The right starts to do it too. We're just kind of accepting things. But he's talking about the extremists, the radicalists. He's saying they promote self-interest. And actually, you know what? A lot of Christians do this.
Oh, yeah.
We promote self-interest, pleasure, self-focus, disregard of others, and vice. That's like, it just hit me. Like, it's just another attempt at man saying God is not right.
Right.
God is wrong. God's design is not good enough for me. You know what I mean? And God's up there like, I know it looks weird to you, but if you do it my way, it's like that handbook you get a car, you have a handbook for the car, and it tells you what to do, how to do it, how to schedule the maintenance, and all the other. Why did my motor blow up? Because the thing told you to change your oil every 5,000 miles, and you waited 20. And you didn't have any oil in your car. You didn't check it like it was supposed to. You didn't, you know what I mean? You didn't take care of your tires. You didn't rotate. You didn't. And then we blame Toyota and get pissed at our car. Stupid car. It's like, no, you didn't take care of it. Now, there are times where the car manufacturers get it wrong, but they call those lemon laws. Okay? So there's a stopgap for that. I'm telling you, God has never failed in any counsel that he's given to anybody. Quite the opposite. His counsel is way above even our understanding. When he says, go to the Bethesda and throw yourself in, what? You know, like the king who was healed, you know, go jump in the river 7 times. It's like, what? You know, I'm going to spit on the ground, make mud, put it over your eyes, and your eyes are going to be healed. All of God's wisdom is beyond our understanding. But we choose to say, because we don't understand it, because it looks stupid to me, I'm not going to do it.
And I don't feel like it. That's not what I want to do.
That's right.
And how often we use those excuses. I don't want to do that. I'm not going to. I would rather blah, blah, blah. And I noticed some of these examples, and it's so interesting that people, you give them enough time to talk, they'll tell you the truth,
dude,
right?
Yeah.
And one of these articles, this woman who's like, I'm child-free and I support it, and my mom should have been child-free, but she couldn't be because social norms. So my mom had my brother, had 2 abortions, then had me, and then got divorced from my dad and pursued her career, and she was this great career woman and all of that. And I can't help but build a personality profile of your mom. Like, boarded 2 kids, pursued career, divorces the husband. Now, I don't know what the husband was. Could have been a dirtbag. Who knows? You know, like, and then this woman writing this child-free article is talking about how I had to take care of my dad, but it was out of obligation and like
selfish.
Exactly. And it's like, do you see not just the selfish nature of the mom, but how that actually carried into the daughter, and that's how the daughter reacts in dynamics. You know, it's like, we've got to be careful of our outlook, our output gets pulled in by our kids, and we could leave 3-4 generations of misdirection because we want to do it our way, not the Lord's way.
Yeah, I will say too, this is just so the Lord in the Old Testament, you know, would talk about barren wombs, and he'd be like, I'm going to resurrect the barren wombs. You read Isaiah 60 and 61 and was it 58, 56 or something like that? Like a lot of references in other books too about barren wombs being open. And then you have this movement, this B4 movement going on, because like, this is the effects. This article is a branch on the tree. The B4 stuff, branch on the tree. It's because of the iniquity that's in man. God actually says, I will give them over in Romans 1 to a reprobate mind. They won't even they'll have a void of understanding and judgment, right and wrong. They don't even know what right and wrong is anymore, right? So you were talking, and we're going to kind of umbrella this together with this childless thing, because child rearing is a gift of God. It's a gift. It's actually like God teaching us how to teach. Like, no better preacher can exist than a good father and a good mother.
Man.
A good preacher, because you've taught your kids.
And you can't gain any more lessons than the failures and successes you have in raising your own children. It's like, oh Lord, I do that to you.
Right, dude. You start to feel it like, man, you wouldn't do that to me. Why did I get on him that way? You wouldn't do it like that to me. Now, I will say too, like in Timothy, when it talks about bishops and the overseers and stuff, why does it not leave a provision out of having children? It says, have a wife and children in subjection. It doesn't leave a provision. If you don't have children, great. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it's an indictment. I'm not saying you should have children to be a bishop or a leader in the church. I'm saying it's like a given. This is what you do. When you have kids and stuff, make sure your household is good. Make sure you know how to raise your kids, right? If you can't raise your own house, you can't take care of the church of God. So, like, there's something to be said about this.
You know what I just thought of? When Christ talks about few who are called to be quote-unquote eunuchs.
Oh, yeah.
That just hit me a different way, because typically it was like, oh, well, they're not getting married. They're single, right? And that's the analogy Christ is using. Like, some are called to this, but not many. But take that down the logical progression, right? What does that mean if you're a eunuch? You can't have kids.
Right.
You can't, and what is, let's be real. Now, sex is obviously for the communion between the man and the wife. Sure. Intimacy.
Relationship.
But hey, what's the biggest priority of having relations? Children.
That's right.
Children.
That's right.
I think that's another aspect of that, is like, few are actually called not to have kids, not to start a family, not to grow and continue the generations.
Right. So going on with this B4 thing, and you're seeing B40. What?
4B.
4B. B4. Yep. 4B. Sorry. 4B. The 4B movement, when you're looking at what that's doing, you're seeing a lot of women come out and saying, we're not going to have sex. We didn't even want to address this because others were going to address it, but this just fits in so well. You look at a lot of these modern liberal thinking, extremist, left side type of women. Very rare do you see them like an AOC who actually dress proper and they look good and those kind of things. And props to her. I mean, she doesn't come across as a liberal junkie, right? Her ideas are definitely a liberal junkie, but she doesn't present herself that way, right?
Correct.
But then you see this other side with the green purple hair. You see head shaved. You see their bull rings, nose rings, all that stuff. You see just the we're not going to shower, armpit hair, the whole nine, whatever it is, right? We have a culture where, like, I grew up in a culture where that's just not what you did, right? So it is culture what I'm talking about. And other cultures don't do that. They don't shave. They don't do that stuff. That's fine. Do your thing. But I want to read in Isaiah 3, and I want you guys to, what?
Before you read that.
Sure.
And this just hit me about this whole concept. Isn't it interesting that adornment, especially like female adornment, cross civilizations, cross cultures, cross history? Because you just brought up, like, in especially like Latino culture, you know, that smelly armpits and, you know, wearing burlap bags and all of that, like, not really popular, not the thing that people do.
It's not attractive.
It's not attractive. And it's not a big thing in any culture.
Right.
Every culture or civilization, there's some type of adornment, some type of dressing nice, some type of cleaning up that happens, not just to attract mates, but self-respect.
There's something about women in other cultures that there's something that highlights them, right? When I think about like Nordic, Swiss, their eyes, their hair, right? Just man, they're just gorgeous ladies, right? I married she's kind of Norwegian, right? That silver kind of blue eyes. Her hair is amazing, hasn't lost a bit, right? And for me, I have. But like, there's features about certain cultures, women, men, whatever, that are just highlighted, right? And each one is highlighted for a reason. Like when you go to India, right? When they put their jewelry on and their makeup, and they look beautiful. Beautiful women. Chopra's, what's her last name? She married a Jonas. She's just a beautiful woman. You know what I mean? Like, There's just women in different cultures, right? That think of Chinese, think Japanese. There's just beautiful women, and they're just look beautiful, innocent. So like, it's cross culture. This beauty standard, right? So rebellion says, I'm not doing none of that. When the Lord doesn't even condemn that stuff. As a matter of fact, he says in Isaiah 3, he's talking to Israel or to Jerusalem and Judah. He's talking to both Israel and Judah here. And it's a judgment. It's Isaiah chapter 3. Basically how the priests have fallen. I'm going to take away your strong men, your counsels. I'm going to take away your artificers. I'm going to take away everybody wise in your land. You're going to be left desolate, right? Now look what he says about the women. I just want you to see this because spiritually you're going to catch it. Moreover, the Lord said, because the daughters of Zion, he's talking about his holy hill, his own women, right, are proud and walk with their heads held high and seductive eyes. Seductive doesn't always mean sexual. It means devious, okay? And go along with mincing steps and tinkle the bangles of their feet. Therefore, the Lord will afflict the scalp of the daughters of Zion with scabs. Watch. He said, I'm going to afflict them. Right? Just go along with me here. And the Lord will make their foreheads bare. And that day, the Lord will take away the beauty of their anklets, their headbands, their crescent ornaments, their dangling earrings, bracelets, veils, headdresses, ankle chains, sashes, perfume boxes, amulets, finger rings, nose rings, festal robes, outer tunics, cloaks, money purses, hand mirrors, undergarments, turbans, and veils. Like everything that we buy on like, oh my God, it's a new thing, Saks Fifth Avenue, right? He's going to take all that stuff away. Everything that made you beautiful. Now it will come about instead of sweet perfume, there will be putrefaction you will smell. You will smell terrible. Not upkeeping yourself. Rebellion, right? Listen to this. Instead of a belt, you'll wear a rope. Dude, that's a popular trend. I'm just saying, like, yeah, it was like for years, I just wear a rope. Watch this. Instead of well-set hair, a plucked out scalp. How many women are buzzing their heads right now? Let me take this to the spiritual. Romans 1 said he'll give you over to what you want. God doesn't have to do it now. You're doing it to yourself. Word for word, God is saying this is the judgment that'll happen when you walk proud before God.
And
dude,
follow the progression, right? So you had this like pride movement, especially in the feminist movement, but this pride movement moving its way through, and this like proud arrogance of I don't need no man, and you're not going to tell me what to do, and I'm going this route, and I don't care what you say, and I'm going to be promiscuous or make my decisions. So this haughtiness, this boasting, this pride. And now when Trump gets elected, this 4B movement comes through.
Sorry, 4B. Yes, 4B.
You men, you brought him into office. We're so mad at you. We're not going to have sex with you anymore. We're not going to get married to you anymore. We're done with you. And they start shaving their heads.
No man's like, oh man, I lost one.
Right. Tink, 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 tink.
Yeah, no, we're swiping left on that, bro. We ain't swiping right.
But isn't it? And I had said to Massey right after it happened, I was like, you see the spiritual significance of that?
Yes, you did. You called it.
Demonic nature of you're mutilating yourself because a woman's hair, a head covering,
it's her crown.
Spiritual adornment.
It's her crown of glory.
Right.
That's what Proverbs says.
And so it's an attack in the spiritual realm against yourself.
Yep.
And
you're taking away your covering.
Defacing yourself.
Yep. God gave you beauty for a reason. And listen to this. I want to finish this out. It says that after plucked out scalp, instead of fine clothes, a donning of sackcloth. Look at the way they dress.
Yeah.
These extremists, right? And branding instead of beauty. I want you to hear me. I have a tattoo. I don't mind tattoos. But you'd rather get a tattoo than just be naturally beautiful. Beauty to you is marking yourself up, branding yourself. I'm not saying branding yourself is bad when you have it in context and what you're doing. When you're doing it just out of spite because society, it's blaming everybody else, there's a problem with that, right? Watch this. Your men will fall by the sword and your mighty ones in battle. Why the constant war push in our country? Right? Why? To take away the men, right? And then the last verse. And her gates will lament and mourn, and deserted she will sit on the ground. The Time magazine article, dude. This is crazy. Like, you can't look at the scriptures and go, man, you speak to every generation. I start crying. Your word endures forever, Lord. And how dare we say like it's out of date and out of tune? No, it's not. Every judgment he presents, we do it to ourselves. It's insanity how if you look at scripture, you're like, oh my gosh, we did it to ourselves. He doesn't even need to do it to us. So we look back at history and go, there was transgenders in the Roman Empire. Now you want it, instead of, right, the evil hand bringing it, you're doing it to yourself. It's like we look at history and go, what evil did they do so I could do it?
And that it
so
becomes
crazy.
a defense, right? It's
Yeah.
a defense. Oh, well, the Romans did it. So that makes it good? It makes it okay?
Unbelievable.
We're going to draw that conclusion? I mean, Genghis Khan killed what? 10% of the world's population? So not everything they did in other civilizations was good. And you watch the spiritual slide of a civilization and, well, they start making even worse choices. I don't know. Any last thoughts?
I just think, here's what I think, because I'll probably end up preaching on this at some point in when I go out and preach about the destruction of man and his thumbing against God. But what the cool part is like, so since we see this in Scripture, since God has shown us this, I was talking to my wife about this last night. Even when God pronounces judgment on a nation, we look at that and say, ooh, God hated them because of their disobedience. No. Why do we have a book written about their disobediences? Because God loved them enough to send them a prophet. So in other words, we look at them and go, look at how dumb that was, and we're going to fall into judgment, and there's preachers out there seeing we're falling into judgment, blah, blah. They're not seeing that that's God's loving kindness to warn us, right? So in other words, I look at Isaiah going, wow, look how, man, that's tough judgment. I'm saying, look at the love he had to send Isaiah to those nations to point out exact sins, point out exact things that they were doing. Why? Because God sees all things, and he's saying, if you would just return to me, if you would just return to me, if you would just return, I'm going to heal you. I'm going to heal your land. So to me, when I see the wicked in the world, all I'm seeing is, oh God, you're exposing it to me so that I can go preach against it and go save souls. This is the one thing. I said this about Dr. Joe's podcast. We can talk about Robert Morris all day long, and people will subscribe, right? Because we're talking about someone else and their flaws. And we didn't even do that on that episode. But we talk about responsibility. I'll put it later. I'll watch it later. They're just going to talk about the same old thing. Maybe God is showing you the same old thing because you haven't started practicing yet. Because when you start to practice your responsibility before God and actually preach, you want more of it. Show me more that I can do. Show me. I want to lay down my life for you, Father, and your children and your sheep. I want to be by the shepherd all the time. You know what I mean? So my encouragement is, don't look at the corruption out there in the world as this is God's judgment. Oh, we're judging ourselves for sure. But look at also maybe that God's judgment sent you in the midst of all that to go warn them and to heal them and to go see them saved. In other words, maybe we're not the Isaiah prophet. Maybe we're Isaiah the preacher. Maybe we're Isaiah the word giver. Maybe we're Isaiah the healer, right? So maybe that's our role. And not even a maybe, it is. So I look at the corruption and go, okay, we've got a job to do. Don't grow weary in well-doing. Don't let up off the gas. That's literally the theme. Don't let off the gas. Let's go. We got things to do, right? So that's my encouragement. Don't stop now. So the worse it gets, the more light we can give. Because it's going to bring sanity to this darkness mess. You know what I mean?
Yep. So you heard it here. No,
do something.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, y'all do something, would you? No, you nailed it. So go to theselfevidenttruth.com, get yourself a shirt, some merch, get yourself resources. We've got Constitution course you can get. So by all means, reach out. Let us know what you think. Maybe you disagree. That's fine. Let us know. But we love all of you guys. We're so grateful for you. Have a great, happy Thanksgiving. Don't do Christmas this week. Do Thanksgiving this week. Then you can do Christmas. So, all right. We love y'all.
Yep.
Have a great day.
See you guys.